prosecutions is 1,000 too many.
Yeah, no, 1 minute, sure.
With our Youth and Congregation Partnership Program, with our Alternatives to Prosecution Program, which affects thousands of young people of color. We have 15,000 children every year who get busted for misdemeanors or violations. I take them out of the criminal justice system, I make them clean up parks, take graffiti off walls. We then dismiss the case and seal the file. They have no criminal record. You know, he's just living in a world of fantasy because he's never ever practiced in a state court. And by the way, just to get back to my point, he still hasn't explained how he has supervisory experience to run an office with 1,200 people, including 500 lawyers.
Dean, I want to answer that question because he keeps bringing that up at all of these debates. Let me deal with this right now. Here's the situation. You are looking at someone, D.A. Hines, who fought his way out of the projects, who went to college and graduated with honors, who went to one of the best law schools in the country, who worked on some of the biggest cases and investigations this country has had, from the ATF agents murdered in Waco, Texas by David Koresh and the Branch Davidians, to the DSK case, to prosecuting cops for torturing Admiral Lima. I have started a law firm with my own 2 hands that is now on 5th Avenue and 16th Street, and we've had to handle some cases that had international implications. I am eminently qualified to serve as Brooklyn DA. I'm more accomplished in private practice than you ever was when you were in private practice.
Ken mentioned, by the way, that I have written 3 books in fiction. That's just inaccurate, like most of the things he says. I've written 1 fiction book. That was Triple Homicide, great book, by the way. And I wrote a non-fiction book called Incident at Howard Beach. I was the chief trial attorney and put 3 white racists in prison for many years. He doesn't have any experience to match that.
Okay, now let me say this. He must not know that I am the prosecutor who prosecuted the cops for torturing Admiral Lima. I'm the one who drafted the indictment. I put the case in the grand jury. I did the investigation, and I stood up and told that jury about how these cops violated their oath and their duty to protect, and how they beat Admiral Lima. Let me finish. How they beat Admiral Lima, dragged him into a bathroom, and tortured him with a broken broomstick. Justin Volpe is in prison today because of the work I put into that case. That is a fact, sir.
Then we're going to wrap up on that and move on. I'm giving you 1 minute.
Why would he not tell you that I was the prosecutor who immediately indicted those thugs who violated Admiral Lima? Why wouldn't he tell you that after I found out that maybe the maximum for that thug Volpe would have been 12 and a half years, I called Zach Carter, the United States Attorney, and I said, Zach, how much time can you give for this kind of stuff in the federal system? He said, up to life. I said, good. I'm giving you the case. We had a press conference. I dismissed the indictments against Volpe and the other 2 thugs. I went over to Zach's office. He applauded me publicly, it's on the public record, for turning the case over so he could give the kind of time that Volpe deserved. And yes, Ken Thompson did give an opening statement in the Volpe case, and yes, Volpe is doing 30 years.
Okay, no, this is important. He tries, look what's happening. He's trying to diminish the fact that I stood up on behalf of the United States government and delivered justice for Admiral Lima. I did an opening statement, I cross-examined, I put the case to the grand jury, I was key to justice there. Now, if his argument is correct, that he handed the case over to the feds because we have stiffer penalties, then why does he hand over every police brutality case he has? It does not make sense. He indicted the case and he gave it to the feds. He indicted the case, he got the publicity, he stood up there, and then he called the feds and said, take the case. And we took the case and we got justice, and so now he can stand up here and say, well, the toughest penalty. Then give all your cases to the feds that involve police brutality.
We're going to Ms. Hines wants to respond, and then we're going to move on from this particular issue, if you want to respond to any of that.
Why doesn't he speak to his boss, the United States Attorney, Zach Carter, who congratulated me on turning the case over because Volpe was going to get more time with the feds. Why would he pander like this? Turn every case over to the feds. I don't need the feds to tell me how to prosecute crooked cops or brutal cops, but in that case, it would have been just totally lacking in justice if Volpe got 12.5 years. That's why I turned it over.
The last thing I'm going to say is, there are 100 federal prosecutors.
Hey, you have to respect it, dear Ken. Now, this, because we'll keep going back on the forth on this one.
Dan, make this one point. It's not about the DA.
And Slade has a question. Do you have a question, Slade? If not, I can ask one.
Well, go ahead, and your turn anyway.
Okay. And this is spirited, so I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but we want to give folks who are here in this intimate setting, and I'm leaving at 8, so I enough time to hear from them. But as you see, both of these men, and I want to congratulate them because they are serious about what they're telling you, so give them both a round of applause. What I would like to ask, because once again, we go back to the issue of we're speaking to members of law enforcement, but members of the community as well. Quite often, law enforcement officers, whether police, corrections, court, they live here in Brooklyn, they are community folks, and their children could get wrapped up in the system, whether wrongfully or rightfully, and sometimes I'm told that kids sometimes don't even have a choice on the streets when it comes to joining gangs or crews. Talk about, and I'll start with you, Mr. Hines, what you want to do, what you have been doing about gang violence and getting kids out of gangs, and the same thing with you, Mr. Thompson. We're going to give both of you 2 minutes when we talk about getting kids out of gangs.
16 years ago, I established a gang bureau within the Brooklyn DA's office. It was the first of its kind. And the reason was I was very concerned that we were beginning to get a level of gangs that could approach Cook County, which is Chicago, or LA County, where they have conventions, if you believe. But about 5 years ago, Reverend Joe Jones, I mentioned it before, and the chief of the gang bureau at the time, came up with a program called Project Redirect. It's a great program. It takes kids who are charged with very serious gang-related felonies, requires them to plead guilty up front, and then they have to go through 2 years of very close, intensive supervision, including going to school, maintaining a C+ average, dress code, a GPS. They are monitored 24 hours a day. Of the 58 kids who've been accepted to that program, 18 dropped out and unfortunately went to prison. 40 graduated. Only 2 have been rearrested for drug-related crimes. And we can't expand the program because we cannot convince the budgeteers that $22,000 a year to keep a kid from being out of a gang is a hell of a lot better than $64,000 to reincarcerate him. We've not been able to convince the budget people. With a new mayor and a new city council, I think I can do it. And that's where I'm going. Project Redirect makes sense. I've got 40 young men I'm very, very proud of. And as a matter of fact, I had a safe surrender today for both folks who had arrest warrants outstanding. My kids from Project Redirect were there helping out today. I'm very, very proud of them, what they've done.
When you look at his Project Redirect, he just gave you the stats. Over 5 years, 58 kids into the program, 18 flunked out, 2 failed as well. So let's do the math. The math is 38 kids in 5 years. And he claims that he can't get the funding for this. Why can't he?
If you want to write it down, guys, write it down.
What he doesn't tell you is this. If it costs 20-something thousand to get for each kid in that program, why is he paying $11 million in rent for his office, more than all the other DA's offices combined? Can't we use that money to put it into programs to get more of these kids into gangs? Also, the difference between the current DA and me is I believe that there's money in the private sector to get. Why does he pick up the phone and call the private sector and try to get money instead of saying that the city is not giving him money? Also, there are groups in Brooklyn on the ground that deal with gangs and deal with street violence, and he's not reaching out to them. There are Man Up in East New York and Brownsville, and he should partner with those groups because they're on the front lines of when these kids have beefs and about to kill each other. We have to do better, and I intend to do better. I'm going to create a gun bureau to deal with the gun violence, and I'm going to deal with the gangs in a more proactive, aggressive way.
This is another,
One minute, you got to do it. Go ahead.
another